We're gonna find out. Everyone buckle up.
I spoke to Perks after that slender victory, and I asked him about it. He said, well, turns out Gragas is better with Yasuo in the bot lane than Rakan. Who knew? So they learned something. They're developing. They're building up.
Every game you play, you have to just take a lesson from it. That's what G2 have done. They've removed the Renekton, the Tristana, Yasuo taken away by Hong Kong Attitude, and the Elise has been banned as well.
And I do really want to hone in on these first two bans from G2, taking away Mission's Tristana, one of the champions that he has been so successful with, as well as 3Z and his Renekton. He's a very streaky player, so taking away a champion that can dominate lane phase takes a lot of wind out of Hong Kong Attitude's sails.
I'm bouncing a little bit because there's a lot of OP champions based on tournament meta available. Kayle, Pantheon, both unbanned so far.
Are we gonna get a Pantheon?
I really hope so.
If we get a Pantheon, I'll be so happy.
Because we get to have the raffle on G2 of who gets it when we listen to the listen, and you know they'll all be going to be fighting for the Pantheon, who has not been sighted since group stages began.
Well, Hong Kong Attitude do have their final ban here. They've already
What's it
taken away
gonna
the
be?
Elise and the Yasuo.
Oh.
No Pantheon, but that does mean Kayle is available. Akali's up. You could go for something.
Kiana.
Kiana as well, Xayah.
Perks' Xayah is, of course, one of his strongest picks. So is it the start of the meta draft or is it the start of the fun? It's a question that right now Jankos is debating.
It looks like it might be meta for the moment. Xayah is the hover. G2, it will have a very strong bottom lane if they lock it in, and it will be Perks on the Xayah for this game.
Yeah, but that means that the Yuumi has also slipped through, so you immediately see Hong Kong Attitude grab that one away, trying to neutralize any sort of Xayah lane. Kiana also made it through rotation. Crash is a pretty small, limited, effective champion pool. Lee Sin is kind of his bread and butter champion, so the fact that he looks over Kiana to grab his signature Lee Sin.
A lot of different ways that the blue side draft can go here. Could definitely just be Xayah, Rakan, and Kiana. They're close to the S tier first round on the blue side. Rise, a favorite of some, and to be considered at least.
Can you imagine if Jankos has just been banned from playing Kiana after the last time?
That's fair.
It's possible. He didn't have the best of games. So went a little bit on the int carousel for that matchup, but the Rise at the moment looks to be what's coming in. Now, I do recall Xayah, Rakan, and Rise being locked in for G2 Esports in spring, alongside a Morgana and a Pyke when they last played a funnel comp. I'm just laying it out there. You never know with G2 what you're going to get. So it is still a possibility.
You stole my point, Medic. I was going to wait till the Morgana got revealed to talk about the funnel.
This way I sound smarter, and that's the important thing for me.
Hong Kong Attitude taking a safer bot lane here. The Ezreal Yuumi. Thought we'd just see a rollback at the Garen, actually, just to try to find a negating lane, but that's not going to be their direction.
It does put emphasis on other poke-oriented champions that HKA would want to round out their composition.
Jace,
something
for
like
example.
the Jace, which I would expect G2 might pinch or ban away. Works so well with Yuumi and Ezreal.
Well, Kiana is the next ban from Hong Kong Attitude. Garen now taken away by G2 Esports in case the Ezreal was something like a mid lane, which we have seen already this group stage.
It's a champion that can apply a lot of auto attack pressure, so it's the sort of thing that we have had revealed by Griffin, and now it's going to be on the sidelines. Rek'Sai ban sent out against Jankos here, so going to have to be visiting newer fields than recently.
Are they going to force him onto Sejuani? Is that what they're trying to do?
Sejuani was quite heavily nerfed before we got onto the world stage on patch 9.19, but is still just a strong tank, a strong initiator for fights.
I actually wouldn't mind Skarner in this draft, actually. I think Skarner would have a lot of validity and a lot of potential suppression targets as well, but not always being a Jankos favorite.
Yeah, I also think that with the Syndra now locked in, that might change the dynamic just because it can be relatively hard to walk up on her if her Scout of the Week is on point.
You think of recent picks, and Olaf would have been one of his bread and butters in a choice spot like this, and it will just be the Olaf to keep the trading patterns aggressive.
Good call there, Papa Smithy. Does mean Funnel is well and truly dead for this draft, so I feel like I've let us down just a tad. Vladimir, perhaps the lock here for Wonder in that top lane.
But now that we have a Olaf, and if that's going to be the mid lane Rise, typically what Jankos likes to do on this champion is play for the Raptor camp. Usually have a delayed invade, steal enemy Raptors, and then just start playing cross for your Raptor camp and very quickly snowballing through the jungle. So we'll keep our eyes on Jankos' pathing to see if that's how he's going to play this one out and just bleed Crash dry in the jungle.
And it might just be a frontline Olaf with speed-ups, invulnerability, hell, maybe a Realm Walk to join him here. Kayle taking definitely the latest stage of a draft so far at Worlds 2019 main stage. action onto Hong Kong Attitude, looking for a top laner against one of Rise or K.
The thing is now, how do you ever disengage Jankos on this Olaf if he gets the ultimate, the Divine Judgment out of the Kayle? He's Ragnarocking at you. You can't scatter him back. You can't CC him. Then you have the quickness follow-up coming out as a very aggressive jungler for G2.
And of course, the answer to that is you attack him early. Now, difficult to do in this particular jungle matchup, but Lee Sin with an Invader's advantage can get things going. The focus on level 1 here has just amped up because that particular predicament you mentioned, Medic, does feel like a mid to late game inevitability. If Jankos gets going, he has more flexible pathing options on an Olaf as well. So I'm hoping to see Hong Kong Attitude rewrite the script of level 1 and actually force the Viking onto the back foot.
Yeah, and they have a lot of tools to do that. Crash and Mission on Lee Sin and Syndra. This combination post level 6 has one of the highest burst damages that you can get out of a 2v2 mid jungle with that ultimate and the Dragon Rage kick. So there are options that Hong Kong Attitude can play on the offensive here in the jungle as long as nothing goes awry in the first 5 levels.
Well, we are going to jump on into the game in just a second. G2, if they win here, will lock both them and Griffin in the quarterfinal spots. They'll be going to Madrid. Hong Kong Attitude 0-3 in the group. But they will have said already today they want to give us a little bit more. They want to give their fans something to cheer about.
We didn't get it.
And now kind of stepping back and getting a look at both of these compositions as they set the rift. There's that potential level 1 that we were alluding to, Papa Smithy, being set up by HKA in the brush.
Got some scouting options with the Q onto the Yuumi, but Olaf level 1 is a very fearsome opponent. G2 for now, fanning out mostly. Olaf topside, you'll notice. Potential vertical jungling start here if they want to allow Kayle a free lane to bank with the Kleptomans.
Yeah, and a potential split map would also work really well by protecting that Kayle from the ganks, like you said, just stacking up her Klepto, not having to worry about any sort of pressure that Crash could put on.
Hong Kong Attitude perhaps expecting G2 already to be in their jungle, going the long way round here.
And reminder, it is a fairly standard pathing option for Olaf when he's in games to play for things like Raptor camps because they have so much experience in gold. He clears them so effectively, and because he has such strong dueling potential, it's why you often see Olafs look for delayed invades. No matter what side of the map that they're on, they do the Raptor camp, they then immediately go to their Raptor camp and then just start cruising through this jungle looking for EXP leads.
And it was certainly a waiting game in the first couple of seconds here. Waited until Mission was obliged to go with the minion break in mid lane. Did Jankos also pop the sweeper to know there was no defensive ward? So unless there was a ward spotting in the brush, which we know there isn't, this is a very nice start for G2 and the vertical jungling we've been talking about.
Yeah, and I do want to point out on the fact that Perks and Mickey are very aggressive on this bot lane, as well as having vision on their own Raptor red ramp. So there's not a lot of options for Crash to actually trade sides of the jungle. I think he's actually going to walk towards his top side, find that it's been completely decimated by Jankos, and Jankos can actually look for a slow clear and then just dominate all quadrants of the jungle.
And this is definitely where a big farm lead that only gets bigger with an Olaf and his power farms like to happen. Because remember, HK invested resources, for example, Aatrox checking the red buff while Raptors were going down. The skill shot is thrown out. The question mark ping begins. Bot lane.
Nice use already on Unified here. He has to flash away. Mickey getting the damage down. The combination of Deadly Plumage and the grand entrance there for the G2 bot lane working wonders.
And frankly, Hong Kong Attitude are just in the blind right now. They're getting smashed in the jungle, and they're now getting smashed in the lane by losing that early flash. Not as punishing because Ezreal does have access to his E, but this is not a great start.
It's triple summoners. Kairing had to pop both heal and exhaust. So any semblance of trade is gone. Ward expected here. And be swept away from Jankos. And how is Crash going to find meaningful camps, given that so many of them require invades that seem impossible?
So Jankos thinks that there's a potential for a counter gank here. Obviously, the Scuttle Crab is also spawning, but he wanted to make sure
They're
that
gonna dive.
Caps...
Oh boy.
could
We're doing it.
Dive.
make this rotation, because that's the only place that Crash could be, would be to try to force a gank on mid lane.
So I think they just forced them away far enough here. Unified does still have the arcane shift. Mickey looking for the knockup. Unified will get away. Jankos flashed there.
Is Caps gonna flash?
Not sure why Jankos flashed, I'll be honest. Maybe to pick up his axe and try and get the damage down onto Unified. Now Unified is
Caps is still on
hanging
that
in
wall.
bush. Caps is waiting. Crash coming in to help out. Perks is behind the tower now. There's another minion wave pushing in, but Mickey is going to back away, and Caps will just recall and teleport to mid.
Minion Wave was about to push into the mid lane. Maybe it was to force Syndra to push and reset and then give him a very obvious teleport back into mid lane, but G2 still exit, no harm, no foul.
But very close. The only way that Crash kind of recovered this initial jungle pathing is if he actually got a successful gank or counter gank off, which is why I like the restraint from G2 not to force that dive, as Crash was able to get there in time. But
Oh, now look at the mid lane. You're going to see the Rise walk up. If he spots that the Scuttle Crab is there, you could do the world's greediest clear of just go straight to Scuttle and clear down a full jungle. And make things even worse, and Crash is going ultra safety so far, as Caps has actually gone all the way around.
Yeah, this is the power of Caps. His ability to roam and after just pushing out his lane and help out his side laners is incredible. Rune Prison's going to land here. There's the Infernal Chains as well. 3Z putting a lot of damage down. Wonder's still trading in. 3Z will get back underneath the tower, but Caps really doesn't lose too much for this gank.
Now Caps is really low on mana, so 3Z actually read that situation very well. Didn't use his flash, and now is baiting.
Here comes Crash. Wonder maybe stepping a little bit too far forward. Still only level 5, looking for that 6, but here is Crash. Level 3 on the lead, jumping in. Flash away from Wonder, trying to dodge the sonic wave, but the chase is still on. Crash doesn't have the damage on a low-level Lee Sin to take out Wonder.
Crash keep looking for his opportunities, but none of them are connecting now. He did get that flash off of Wonder, like you're saying, so maybe there's a potential that he revisits for 3Z, who also has his flash, tries to make it count, but continuing to fall further and further behind, 34-20 between Olaf and Lee Sin.
Bot lane, you can see a pretty significant advantage as well with the zone off invade that we saw earlier in the game. Crash going to be happy to pick up a Rift Scuttle. He goes for his clear, but the tempo advantage, the map access advantage for the Olaf is clear for everyone to see.
It definitely is, and usually when Caps gets these roams off, he gets a couple of kills. He gets an assist at least. Here, he hasn't got anything out of it, and has actually fallen behind in CS in the mid lane. He's about 15 farm behind on average. So Mission is actually in a good spot, now having hit level 6 to maybe be able to influence one of his side lanes.
It's also the fact that Wonder doesn't have his wave in the greatest position. He may need to call Caps, or at least Jankos again, to help him reset this.
Let's see if he does. 3Z doesn't quite land the chains there onto Wonder, who's trying to trade back. Jankos is on the top side of the map. Remember that Aatrox still has his flash and now has level 6. Jankos is coming up here. I think he was spotted on that control ward as he puts down one of his own, and Jankos will just shepherd Wonder towards this minion wave to make sure it doesn't freeze outside of 3Z's tower.
3Z will use the time to just clear it up, doesn't want to allow for a full reset either. Wants to keep KO in lane for as long as possible, but worth knowing that Wonder's first back was not at the cost of his teleport. There's Jankos staying around top side, looking to bait.
Perks has TP.
He does. 3Z, though, has the one ender. Pops as he runs away. The Infernal Chain's coming down. There's the Undertow. The X's are landing here. 3Z very low, trying to trade still. Lands one of the Darking Blades, and Wonder not yet level 6 means that that dive would have been very difficult for G2 if they wanted to enact it.
And of course, the reason why I kind of throw out that information is it is one of the plays of G2 of Perks will just immediately pull the trigger on that TP to help cross-map plays like that in the past. Now, Crash seeing that Jankos is giving so much time to Wonder, helping him reset that lane, helping him try to get out of a sticky position, does have access to the Cloud Drake.
Only going to hurt the amount of camps that he's cleared, and if you're wondering why Jankos is going for what seemed like a low percentage gank of actually pulling off a kill, it was also shepherding the minion wave further forward, and the level 6 to be crowned on the Kale to actually get the laning trades better, can reset the lane a lot easier if you can just start auto-attacking minions alongside your Q.
It's felt like G2 have been trying to make a lot happen in this early game, and Hong Kong Attitude have actually held them at arm's length. The gold is relatively even. HKA have a Cloud Dragon in their back pocket, and although there's some CS discrepancies looking at the jungle with Jankos being about 10 farm ahead, and in that bottom lane there's a small lead for Perks, it's kind of mitigated by a top lane and mid lane lead for Hong Kong Attitude.
I also think it's kind of the nature of G2's compositions and the champions and tools that they have available to try to make some of these very aggressive plays. You know, it's a bit of a different story if you think think back to Caps' roams on something like a Talia or his Arulian Soul versus this iteration of Ryze ganking a KO lane. I think it was mostly about, hey, if we get the gank, if we get the kill, that feels nice, but otherwise it's just trying to alleviate pressure.
3Z, yeah, lands the chains once again. Wonder has to pop the Divine Judgment to survive. 3Z has been on point with those Darking Blades. He's got himself a little bit of a sword shop as well with triple longsword in his inventory. Wonder's struggling to deal with him. Crash on his way up. Jankos here to try and act as a bouncer for his top laner. Crash is going to face check. Jankos just took away the blast cone.
Syndra's behind him.
And there's a moment of silence before a fight perhaps begins. Crash comes in. He's on a ward. G2 spot him out, and Crash runs away straight away after he sees that Jankos is there underneath the tower.
And it's not only that Jankos read this play correctly to be underneath Wonder. If you also take a look at Mickey's back timer and the fact that he's gone missing, you saw the missing pings from HKA on the bot side, indicating that Rakan could also be heading up towards that top lane. So HKA very clearly reading that G2 figured out what was up and disengaging from the play.
I love that you mentioned that conditional. So here's the Rise Realm Warp.
Yeah, if Mickey's going to be here to join this as well. The Rune Prison lands. There's the knockup with the Grand Entrance. Final chapter pop. Unified flashes underneath the tower. And HKA managed to survive.
And plays like this show exactly what you were illustrating, Froskuren. You just have to assume, okay, he's off the map. He's probably going top lane for the counter gank as well. No, was able to just understand that removing will threaten all 3 lanes and then join the Rise. No successful kill as top side.
3Z jumping in with the chains. Wonder isn't going to get pulled back. Still has his flash. Doesn't have the ult though, and he's been locked down. Hong Kong Attitude are on the board. First blood to them.
And frankly, Wonder is just getting worked up here in this top lane. He's constantly losing control over his minion wave. Jankos has had to spend a lot of time trying to dig him out, but he is often left up to his own devices, and Crash and 3Z are punishing him.
Mission trading here onto Caps. The Unleashed Power almost takes him down. Mickey was waiting just around the corner in case a counter gank was possible, but HKA at the moment, 600, 500 gold ahead, seem to be in command of this game.
And watch the replay on the top side. They knew that the KO ultimate was off cooldown. KO was able to sidestep away from the Infernal Chains, but only to her inevitable demise.
Yeah, didn't have flash, didn't have ult, had to go for the minion wave, so just very greedy positioning by Wonder that was rightfully punished by Hong Kong Attitude.
3Z has had Wonder's number so far. There's the Infernal Chains again. Wonder still doesn't have the Divine Judgment, doesn't have his ult. Has his flash, but it's very difficult for him to get away. Mickey looking for the chase here. The Prowling Projectile is going to land. Unified jumps away. Mickey goes in. There's the Feather Storm. They want this kill so badly, and they will get it. Perks with the first kill of the game for G2.
They pick it up with a plum. The flash later in the piece after the pre-pop from Mickey guarantees the kill. Cat Nopes out, not interested in going down on that one. But we're actually seeing Aatrox in a matchup other than Vladimir pull off the same sort of lane domination and give us potentially a future matchup in a best of 5.
It's definitely one that could work its way back and forth. Of course, Chaos scales incredibly well as the game goes on. You're looking for level 11, level 16 when you get a Risen and a Flame. Crash here has come back from a big early deficit to now jump straight onto Jankos, but Caps is on his way. Crash leaps across with the safeguard. 3Z trading onto Wonder. The Divine Judgment didn't save him from the final shot, and 3Z will not follow him under the tower.
3Z is just dunking on Wonder right now. Call it matchup, but hold it.
Mission rooted up. There's the Grand Entrance for Mickey. Mission just about able to get away with a sliver of HP. Hong Kong Attitude are on the Rift Herald here. They have control of the top side of the map, and they're looking to secure that objective.
Perks is walking here, but he also has TP. There he goes.
TP's in, 4,000 HP on the Rift Herald. Teleport coming in by HKA as well. It's 3Z who will join the fight, and that Rift Herald should be pretty much secured. Mickey has to jump away, and because of that, G2 know they don't have their engaged tool.
And it was a really good moment to pick for HKA. I want to hold it though. Mickey could go over that wall. Okay, it was a good moment for HKA to pick for the Rift Herald because they're using the controls that they have topside with 3Z versus Wonder, just absolutely blasting him in that topside. And the fact that Syndra was level 9 and had so much more damage behind her.
And it's not just levels, it's cooldown tracking as well. No ultimates were available for G2 as that play happened, not even the Ragnaroks. So there really was no ability for them to contest ults down against an HKA team that really hasn't fallen behind. Remember, it was them stabilizing a game against G2 last time that threatened to be a G2 absolute smashing of a game, but in this one, HKA have been on point and definitely aren't willing to count themselves out yet. You already raised the stakes earlier, Medic. G2 are 1 winner away from 2 games into the day crowning the teams exiting this group.
True Shot Barrage just clips Mickey, but isn't quite enough damage. And now Wonder, once again, we've seen this story. It's a tale as old as time for Wonder in the bottom lane. Mission's coming in, looking for the scat of the week. Jumps in, unleash power, just destroys him.
That doesn't feel good, and meanwhile, while Wonder is getting deleted in the bot lane, HKA are storming on the top side of the map. So cross-map play, win for Hong Kong Attitude.
And these moments kind of make it feel like the nameplates are reversed, because it's G2 famous for winning on multiple sides of the map instead. Game being dictated to by the HKA side all through 3Z's start. Now Jankos mid.
They know Mission doesn't have his ult. He's rooted up underneath the tower. They dive. Ragnarok coming out from Jankos. They will take a couple of plates out of this, and it's a little bit of a dessert there for G2, but still, you're losing plates in the bottom lane. You've lost your tower in the top. Hong Kong Attitude are pulling G2 all over the map.
And it's kind of now taking stock of where each team has their strength. We've talked a lot about 3Z and how far Wonder's been put behind, but take a peek into Perks' CS comparatively to the Ezreal. And now that you have an open, long lane, G2 have been very good at this World Tournament in funneling as much gold and as many resources as possible onto Perks on the Xayah. So we'll keep our eyes about how they're moving vision around him, how they're escorting him almost Uzi-esque into lanes and continuing to build up CS leads.
And it's important that they're getting their counter punches, because the big thing from the G2 listen-ins is Jankos is famous. We're running it down, guys. And then from there, how smart they are about resetting map control and actually turning it into a G2 favorite map. Now, the two cross-map plays in bot and top lane going the way of HKA show they've got some work to do, but that has been a staple of G2 so far at the World Championship.
And it's also kind of the evolution of G2, as it's the solo laners, not so much Caps, but definitely Wonder, that have been struggling so far in this game, and it's Perks and Mickey that are standing really tall, whereas the last time we saw G2 at MSI and International, it was all about the solo lane strength, that ultimate from Gnar on Wonder there to save the game against SKT. So a very different tale for this look of the team.
It is a story we've kind of seen for G2 across the course of this Worlds, though. One or two players each game has an interesting game, to say the least, and everyone else steps up and carries them through it. Here, Wonder is having a little bit of a difficult time dealing with 3Z in a side lane. He's died twice. The rest of the team has actually yet to give up a kill.
I do want to focus back in on this game, though, as HKA are actually setting up a siege on this mid lane. They've got all 5 members that were converging here.
We mentioned also the economy of movement from G2. They're up in CS overall, if you just do some quick mathematics on the CS totals, and that tells you they haven't necessarily been bleeding out this early. Jankos pops over the wall.
And if you can keep Caps and Jankos around where 3Z is, this is a lot better for G2. Get Wonder some free farm, get him some funneled farm in one of the side lanes, and keep him away from this Aatrox, who has had his number for the entire game. Caps will get this gold from the top lane tower. G2 will have their first turret of the matchup, and that siege from Hong Kong Attitude in the mid lane hasn't really paid off anything for them yet.
Caps had started with just straight up Archangels, where he didn't actually have a lot of percentage value out of his gold spend. Suddenly, he's got a full Saracen merch. He's actually very powerful at this present point in the game.
Unified steps forward straight into the quickness. Just walks straight into Mickey, and G2 will happily accept these kills. But here comes the Divine Judgment. Crash surviving on the backline is a double for Jankos, making a triple. 3 to the Olaf, and Caps is winning the trade in the top side. Can't quite land the overload to jump in the Seraph shield. It's enough. 4 kills to G2 all over the map. Mickey dies in mid as Mission comes in to clean up 1.
And suddenly, it's a very different story about this game. We were talking about how HKA had done a wonderful job winning top side of the map. They were finding their moments, but instantaneously everything blows up. The CS leads have been created across the map in terms of Caps and Perks' pockets, and Jankos just strolls through that tower and picks up a quick triple.
And if you scratch your head as to what has changed, consider that G2 made it no longer about side lane advantages. They actually squared up the game by playing through mid. Jankos had already taken over the red side jungle. He comes with a turret dive, finds a very low health Ezreal. Cleanup crew is real as Perks only just gets overkilled as the KO ultimate falls off. As the play keeps to roll out. Obviously exit kill available for Mission, but huge trade up by G2.
And now cross map, because it's not done just yet. Caps gets his 1v1 revenge on 3Z. And just to kind of go back to what you were talking about, Papa, the fact that G2 have kind of changed up the lane assignments, gotten Kale away from this guy, and are now starting to abuse 3Z with Caps.
That sleight of hand that G2 can pull off and make you think that they're weaker or stronger than they are has been a consistent trend of this team in 2019. Caps is just out of nowhere exploded. Had a pretty much a single-player kind of game, but that is to the tune of the biggest gold total so far.
And Wonder ahead of 3Z on gold as well. Has had some farm funneled into him, has the Kleptomancy building up those stacks. Now with a Hextech Gunblade on his way to a Nash's Tooth, that Kale is only becoming more powerful as the game goes on. Essence Reaver complete for Perks in the bottom lane. You can see on the other side, Unified is building his way up towards a Trinity Force, so he can be a very powerful Ezreal if he gets towards those 2 items.
They've slipped in here undetected, so Mission needs to be careful.
Here goes Jankos, looking for the chase. There goes Jankos, running away. Mission lands a little bit of damage onto him, but G2 should just be able to walk away from this one.
I feel like we made the Jaws moment a little bit inflated there with the combination of champions. Who goes wide from Crash. He's trying to find a way to re-exert his will, because in the early game, Crash was getting some nice moves off.
The issue is that Hong Kong Attitude's composition, I'll hold it.
Oh, Crash, that's not the kind of move you want to have happen. Jankos unstoppable, has 5 kills now on this Olaf. Caps is winning a side lane up towards the top side, and 3Z really can't do anything about the pushing pressure of that Rise. Meanwhile, G2 are just grouping up as 4.
G2 have done a wonderful job splitting the map, and when they are grouped up, they're forcing fights, whereas Hong Kong Attitude are unable to do the same thing in return. They don't have the same initiation tools that G2's composition does to immediately turn on fights and kind of force you to fight them. If Mission's not grouped up, they don't have any way to say, let's go.
And unfortunately, they haven't found a way to re-exert their will in a positive lane matchup for 3Z, who had so much of their early game advantage. Phase Rush Rise against mid lane or top lane Aatrox counterpick back in spring season. That's exactly the lane matchup they've set up, and even though the root isn't on command on the W anymore, you're just able to open up space and win out on damage trades pretty effortlessly as the Rise.
Froska, a few minutes ago you wondered about exactly where the CS will be funneled for G2. You can see Perks still has about a 20 to 25 farm lead, but Caps is really the one that they put a lot of emphasis on getting him ahead.
It's not necessarily putting the emphasis on getting Caps ahead, it's the fact that no one is stopping Caps, and he's pushing past a second tier tower, so he's actually just hitting the minion waves first, whereas Perks has just been parked in this mid lane to hoover up everything. So Caps has created his lead pretty much all by himself by being like, if they don't stop me, I guess I'll just take everything.
To continue to walk down again, the CS lead between the two teams grows as HKA can't reset a map state where they're trading up, trying to stem the bleeding, even though a couple of minutes ago they were looking in a very good spot. And Gus walking up. Not even a Gromp going to be a freebie.
How would you set up a map state where you're trading up here if you're Hong Kong Attitude? Because we've seen G2 do this to teams in the past. You know, they have a slow start, then they just seem to flick a switch and take over the game. If you're HKA, what are you looking at doing apart from getting caught out in the mid lane as the charm comes down? Unified jumps away. Mickey unable to land it onto Unified there. TP's coming in. Maybe Hong Kong Attitude want to take this fight. Mission's coming down from the top lane. You can see the damage not really sticking on Unified. Mickey really had a misplay though as he missed a lot of his skills. Hong Kong Attitude now is 5 are just pushing in mid. Mickey almost gets taken out, but not quite enough damage to slay the Rakan right now.
But you can see some of the frustration, almost the desperation from HKA as they are trying to brute force G2 here, but it is hard to grab these champions.
Mickey's still there, doesn't have the quickness, has a flash if he wants to go in. Caps not with the team, he's in the bottom lane pushing in, and HKA have opened up a mid lane tower.
Caps was waiting for the minion wave behind him. It's now crashed in, so G2 actually want to step forward, get eyes on HKA, and make sure that Caps is continuing to get this 1v1. Jankos is actually shadowing underneath 3Z here.
Well, Caps will just look for the tower, but 3Z is going to
just kill him
into the face of death. The World Ender comes out. Caps is like, well, we'll take that. They walk away. They take the turret, and that is the 4th tower of the game for G2. A 4,000 gold lead. Well, 3.5 if we're being precise, and with that, they can now look towards those next steps.
Breezy doesn't get the interrupt there, and it feels a bit fortuitous, but we answered the question you had to cut off, Medic, in terms of what to do. You look at the HKA comp, Syndra, Yumi, Ezra, all good in the siege, and grouping down mid. Running it down mid with some safety was a way to actually get an objective to stem the bleeding. But G2 are much more interested in playing side lane, so if that easy objective like mid lane outer turret is down, you got to bring your support in jungle, put down a control ward, set up a strong side, otherwise G2 will repeat this ad nauseum, and now they're looking for a further pick.
Unified trying to get away here with Kai Wing. They have the blast cone, Caps and Perks on the chase. Caps like, I'm leaving you behind, Perks. I'm sorry. Unified will flash away, but Mickey's here to continue the fray in the top lane. Mission Unified, Kai Wing against Mickey, Caps, Jankos and Perks on his way. The charm comes out, the quickness used. Unified is down. Jankos is dominated, but here comes the turnaround. The jump in from Crash is available. He's hit the Sonic Wave with a Feather Storm. The Blade Caller rips back through the heart of Hong Kong Attitude. They lose 2 and they run for the hills.
Very nicely played by G2 right there. Yeah, Caps pieced over the wall in the early blast cone, but clearly they didn't need Perks to make the damage stick.
You just see how strong the comms are from G2. They were moving as a 5 as Hong Kong Attitude tried to find a defense for their Ezreal. We're onto the Baron. The setup is strong. Crash needs to find a steal.
Yeah, Crash will look for the steal here. Has the Sonic Wave, uses it a little bit early. Still 6,000 HP on that Baron. And Crash being chased away by Caps. And this should be a pretty easy secure now for G2. 23 minutes and 45 seconds in, they will secure the Baron. Not the quickest game, but they have definitely upped the tempo in the last couple of minutes.
Yeah, for what has been a fairly quiet early game where Wonder was just kind of getting pushed in, suddenly everything come alive. And I do want to focus in on Jankos of all people, now 6-0 and 2 on this Olaf. It's really been him moving around behind his side laners that have opened up these massive advantages in terms of experience, gold, and power on guys like Caps.
The thing that's lost about G2 in the midst of their happy games, their Garens and all of their flair, and Smack Talk on Twitter we should mention, is their fundamentals. They all had a role into play in Baron setup. That's why they're there as a 5 and finding exit kills. And so often they reset games that would be unwinnable for other teams by relying on their strong comms and fundamentals, knowing what the next most important objective is. Whether the champion is Teemo or Tristana, they've got it together.
Right now, HKA looking down a 5,000 gold lead and trying to work out exactly what they can do. This will be the 3rd dragon of the game if G2 decides to go for it. It's only an Ocean, so they'll leave it standing for the moment. Caps is just split pushing in the top lane, all on his lonesome, and really there's no one yet there to react for HKA. 3Z on his way up now, but that's going to be very late, and maybe Hong Kong Attitude will want to make a play in the mid lane because Caps is already chipping away at this inhibitor tower.
I also don't know what 3Z can do. That's level 16 to level 13 Rise versus Aatrox. He can kind of watch him.
That's what he's doing. He's watching him, shepherding in the minions. The rest of Hong Kong Attitude were on their way up towards them, but for now G2 will accept that. They've still got a mid lane tower they can take down here. It's the first turret in that mid lane. Unified pops the True Shot Barrage, but really doesn't do too much to those bound up minions. And there goes the first tower in mid. Now Wonder joins up with the rest of G2 to look for the second, and HKA trying to find a way to react, maybe looking for a 5-man force because 3Z is just waiting in the wings. Crash jumps in, but there's the Divine Judgment from Wonder, which keeps him safe. 3Z trying to join the fight. Caps is now coming in from the top side, perhaps looking for someone to come across on the rotation because there are still minions pushing in top.
And Caps could have the opportunity to actually just go top side and threaten that inhib, but it's the fact that G2 are waiting for the minion crash so they can dive and just destroy Hong Kong Attitude here. Kind of gives you the mental of G2 and the plays that they look for.
Hong Kong Attitude just didn't have the liberty to roll down mid lane against Baron buff. This Poke comp, we know how strong they are with Baron against Baron, really plays away from them, so many easy objectives for G2 to take on the backside of their mid lane push, and a level 17 Rise is going to be chased down.
Round 1 comes out, there's the final chapter, but Caps has already read that book and he knows how to get out of there. Here comes the fight in the bottom lane as Jankos tries to land the undertow. No minions pushing in, but Perks has ushered in a wave in the mid lane while Caps once again just resets top. Mickey looking for the grand entrance, can't quite land it. The Scout of the Week doesn't hit either, but Caps is now on that inhibitor up towards the top side, and Hong Kong Attitude have to react at some point. Crash has the dragon range, could try and jump in, but isn't going to go for it just quite yet. Jankos and Wonder now down bot, pushing in another turret, and you can see Hong Kong Attitude have 3 different points where they have to react, and they can't quite do it quickly enough, which means an inhibitor tower falls in the bottom lane, an inhibitor's about to fall in the top, and meanwhile, the mid inhibitor tower is the target for G2. They are ripping HKA's base apart, and Hong Kong Attitude have no way of reacting.
The last tick of the gold lead, and Baron gives them 4,800 gold Baron power play. Rather than the style, rather than the panache, it's about a Baron setup and a Baron 3-lane push that gets G2 the amount of lead that feels insurmountable by Hong Kong Attitude.
9,000 gold ahead now at the 27-minute mark. 2 minutes on the Baron if they want it, but they could just look for a 5-man stack and go for one more of these inhibitors, go for the Nexus afterwards. Hong Kong Attitude, we are sitting on a 3-item Ezreal. You have got a Banshees and a Ludens complete on mission, but you feel it would have to be a perfect sequence of events for them to have any chance of getting back in this game.
Yeah, because take a peek across the other side at G2's items. The amount of gold that they just took back to the base and have just completely stocked out on is absurd. The experience leads, the gold leads, the item leads. They can walk up to anything that they want and take it for free.
And this win feels cut from the same cloth as their win over Griffin, which is like a tactical victory in the scaling comp they debuted earlier in the tournament. 2 happy games, 2 very calculated games, showing their range for sure are G2. And I'm sure this is a victory that doesn't kind of capture the imagination like some of their banger games, but it is one that does start to allay some of the fears of people wondering if Invictus Gaming from MSI was going to rear its ugly head in G2.
It's also a very old school way that G2 used to win their games. If you even think back to their team before Caps.
The previous roster, yes.
And it was in the side lane, so excellent work between Jankos and Caps here.
Hong Kong Attitude just trying to make it square. They're so far behind. They know that already. 29 minutes in.
Wonder is level 16 on this Kale as well, so he is well and truly arisen. Caps 18, highest level in the game, on the rise. Here comes the engage. 3Z flashes away, pops the World Ender. His ult is ticking. Nexus Tower already being chunked out here. Caps gets kicked in by Crash into the middle of the team. Wonder flashing away, but Crash has already shut down Caps. Now Perks, though, he can open up. Hasn't been touched yet this fight. Wonder getting
legendary.
The flaming swords, just ripping through HKA. The feathers pull back. Mickey flashing forward, Mission flashing away, but the Nexus Towers will get taken down. Mission falls on the fountain. G2 clean up Hong Kong Attitude, and they will lock their spot in quarterfinals. They are coming to Madrid.
And ending it with a legendary performance, an unkillable performance from Jankos on that Olaf. We've had a couple of different carries stand up for G2, but just showcasing the strength of this team, the fact that they can attack you from every position, save from Wonder.
And it does mean that today's group is bookended by some high drama. Remember, the final game of this group is looking very likely to determine first seed and potentially force a tiebreaker going forward. So Griffin is going to be looking at this G2 game and wondering, is it going to be like their first meeting? Is it going to be like this game? The draft gives us all that final information as the crowd in Berlin gives their respect to G2.
So they should. 4-0 so far, undefeated in the group stage here at World. After so many years of G2 being a team that you didn't look forward to watching at Worlds as a European fan, it is great to see them step up on the World stage. Hong Kong Attitude, of course, on the other hand, a struggling performance for them, but they did show so many signs of life early on.
G2 is showing their range. You know, they're not going to be typecast as the funny guy or the leading man. They can do some comic relief. They can do it all. And these sort of games, again, are the sort of things that really elevate their candidacy for some of those lofty goals. Remember, they are